Survive Outdoors, welcome. Today we're going to do something a little different. We're going to discuss what is the best steel for knives and what are those prefixes and suffixes on the number on the blade. What do they mean? So we're going to start out with a little bit of history. In the 1600s, France basically came up with one of the first folders. About 1890, 1891, Victorinox, Swiss Army came up with theirs. And then in about 1963, Buck came up with their first folder. And Benchmade came around the scene around 1979. So Buck and Benchmade are your US-made knives. So the difference we're talking about here is primarily in stainless steel versus steel or carbon knives. If you look at the shiny Swiss Army, it is basically a concoction of alloys that make up this very resistant, rust-resistant stainless steel blade. Now, it's fine and it's a great tool. However, what it does do is it's very difficult to sharpen, much more compared to the other ones. Pretty decent in terms of not rusting, actually, and it's not going to chip that much at all. Of course, chipping, yes, it depends on the steel, but it also is directly related to how you sharpen your blade. And if you look at some of these older ones, this is an old antique carbon steel blade. You can see a lot of the wear on it. And this is one I've used for quite a while. It's a Russell belt knife. And this has on the side, you'll see, made in 1958. Now the Russell belt knife uses stainless as well as carbon. It will rust and is very durable. They use a German steel as opposed to an American steel. I really honestly cannot tell you the difference between the two. However, I have had this for decades and it really, its rosewood handle has served me very well. So I want to talk to you a little bit about what are those numbers and what do they mean. Now the Buck 112, this blade right here, basically is a 420 HC. Now 420 C steel is high carbon steel. It is not the best metal in the world for blades. It's actually a lower end metal. And that's important for you to note. Benchmade also uses some 420 HC, but the vast majority of their blades are S30V, and the V stands for Vanadium, V-A-N-A-D-I-U-M, and that is noted for extremely good edge retention. So that's why you're going to pay a little more for your Benchmade. Buck also makes blades with S30V, and that is an excellent, tough, very good steel. Has 1.5% carbon in it on their S30Vs, and some other blades will have an S30V also. So S30V, remember the V stands for Vanadium, and that is an excellent in terms of hardness. And Benchmade uses a variety. Benchmade will use 154 CM, and they'll use 390, and S30V and CPM M4. So what does CPM stand for when you see that on a blade? It stands for Crucible Particle Metallurgy. And that CPM is just a combination of different metals that are used in their blade. And A2, for example, the Bark River, famous Bark River blade of a knife, these are awesome fixed blades. This is really an old Bark River. I loaned this out, and it has a little chip there. The guy was basically working on a deer and used it for the pelvic bone, and I didn't appreciate that, but there you have it. And they use an A2 steel, which is a very high quality steel. You can't, if you're a knife maker, A2 steel is really the way to go. They do make a D2, but that's very difficult to sharpen. And this is the Phobos. And Phobos knives, you're going to see they're extremely thick. You look at the difference here in terms of the thickness of that blade. And this is, Phobos stands for operators by operators. I want to address the Leatherman. The Leatherman blade on, this is the Free P4. And this is their blade. They use a 420HC. Not the best quality. However, it'll probably be pretty easy to sharpen. Clay Hayes on alone used this, and he would sharpen this on a wet stone numerous times when he was out on that little expedition that he won. But then if you go back, this is, again, I've had this for 25 years. This is the Leatherman Charge, and right on the Leatherman Charge, you're going to see 154 cm. And 154 cm is an excellent, it'll stay sharp for a good, depending on how much you use it, clearly, but 3 times longer than the 420HC. And that is an excellent blade. Little bit harder to sharpen because of the edge retention. It's going to keep it for a while, but it's a great blade. So in summation, before you go out spending a couple $100 or $100 on a knife, what are you going to be using it for? Are you going to be using it for bushcraft? And if you are, you're going to want something that you're going to be able to baton wood. Or you want something for that and skinning game. So you have to assess what you're wanting the knife for. And what is your budget? You want something that's durable. It's going to stay sharp reasonably, but also have hardness. The more carbon you have in the blade, you're going to increase your hardness. It will increase the chance of it rusting. But if you're really obsessive and you take care of your knives, that's not going to be an issue for you. Also, heat treatment is really important, and that's called Austenitizing, Austenitizing. And the degree of heat treatment also is going to be directly related into the hardness of that blade. So that's important also to think about. So 420 steel on a blade is going to be your lower end pocket knives fixed blade. Remember that. 440C is going to be a higher end steel. And your S30V, that's very tough. It's excellent. It's really, really a very, very good steel for your blades. And then you have the, as we were talking about on the Leatherman, the 154 cm, and it's also on the Benchmade and the S30V. So for me personally, I like the S30V. It'll stay sharp for me for definitely a few weeks. And I have to take my time sharpening it, but fantastic metal, the S30V. And you can't go wrong with the 140 for the 154 cm. You can't go wrong with that, and that's in that Leatherman Charge I showed you. So that is a basic rundown on what do the prefixes mean, what do the suffixes mean, what is, my opinion, the best steel for a knife. You may want a different steel for your fixed blade as opposed to your pocket knife. So these are all considerations to make when deciding to put out that money. I'm going to list a few of these down below. Good luck. Keep your eyes on the rise and your face to the wind. Until next time.